Good morning. We will start our lesson soon. And today, Daga Bożek from the Institute of Geophysics Polish Academy of Sciences will present plants adaptations to the Arctic climate. Dagmara is a specialist in science communication and education, but she also spent more than 2 years in Arctic and Antarctic stations run by Polish institutions. So she will present, let's say, firsthand the information on the plants in the Arctic. So Daga, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Agata, for introducing me. Hello, everyone. I'm very glad that there are so many of you, because I didn't expect it. So, as Agata said, today I'm going to talk a little bit about the plant's adaptations to the Arctic climate, because yes, I had an opportunity to work at the Polish Polar Station Hornsund and observed some plant species, talked to the scientists that carrying out some experiments concerning the plants in polar regions. So of course, I don't have the full knowledge about this, but I can show you some interesting sources of the knowledge you can use during your classes and so on. The information I will present are connected with our project that was called EduArctic 2. Within, we prepared a lot of educational packages concerning some topics about the Arctic. So that's why many information presented today you can find in the toolkit. And so there is the very nice view of the Spitsbergen landscape. The Spitsbergen is the largest island, belongs to Svalbard archipelago. The Svalbard is located in the high Arctic, and it is under the rule of the governor of Svalbard, and in administrative way it belongs to Norway. So it is a very typical view for the Arctic tundra, and it is the very close location to the Polish Polar Station Hornsund. It is the Hornsund Fjord in the center of the photo, mountains and beautiful tundra. The tundra is the biome which is the northernmost in the earth when we are talking about, of course, the Arctic tundra, because tundra might be observed as well in the Greenland coasts or in the Antarctic or in the mountains in the Europe. So it's not only typical to the Arctic area, but yeah, today we will focus on this special location. So the biome is let's say, group of plants and animals that are typical for defined area in geographical meaning and the climate zone. So when we are talking about the Arctic, it's the territories which belongs, for example, to some countries like US, Canada, Denmark, Norway, Russia. And in those northernmost areas, we can observe the tundra as well. And of course, on some islands. So that's why on Svalbard archipelago, we can observe as well the tundra. I would like to present you a short video concerning the tundra. It's of course hard to show you all of them, but I will send you the link.
Kiedy słyszysz, czas na film specji.
The advertisements, I like it very much.
What are tundras? Tundras are among the Earth's coldest and harshest biomes. These ecosystems are treeless regions with extreme cold and low rainfall. There are two different types of tundras, alpine and Arctic. Alpine tundras occur on mountains where trees cannot grow in the high altitudes. There, the growing season is about 180 days. Mountain goats, sheep, marmots, and birds feed on low-lying plants and insects. Arctic tundra extends from the edge of the Arctic Ocean down to the coniferous forest of the taiga. Permafrost prevents trees from taking root. But shrubs and other vegetation grow during the short summers, which range from 50 to 60 days. A variety of wildlife, including Arctic foxes, polar bears, and caribou, live in the Arctic tundra. Global warming is changing the Arctic tundra, and the changing tundra is contributing to global warming. The Arctic's permafrost is deteriorating, which alters not only the landscape, but also the plants and animals that can live there. In addition, permafrost contains about 14% of the Earth's carbon. So as it melts, that carbon is released into the atmosphere, contributing to global warming.
I think that that video is a very nice summary of some topics I will cover during today's classes. So I think that it's nice to have the link in the presentation we will send you. So in the toolkit I present, and that is available within the EduArctic 2 project, there are some exercises as well you can do while reading the presentation or while the classes. And for example, here is the graphic of the tundra soil profile. It's very simple, of course, but there are some terms I think that are interesting to know, like the active layer, thallic, permafrost. Permafrost, we know that it is the frozen ground for at least 2 years or more. So it's typical for the Arctic, typical for the Arctic tundra, and it of course affects the type of plants we might observe in high Arctic areas. It's the thallic, it's layer, of course, it's, as I said, very simple. I presented in a very simple way. It's between the active layer and the permafrost, and it is the water that is trapped between the ground, which is thawing during the summertime, and the permafrost, which is stable and not easy to come deeper for the liquid, which is the water. So it might be a reservoir of small or big amounts of water. It depends on the type of the tundra soil profile. So it's not like this that in many cases it's observed, but yeah, that type of the layer is called like this. If you would like to read more about the thallic, you can find the information in the Polarpedia. It is the encyclopedia we prepared about the Arctic, and the link also is in the presentation. Active layer, as I said, is the layer which is located in very close to the surface, and it is thawing and freezing depending on the time of the year. So it is moving all the time, let's say, and it's covered by the very thin layer of the soil, the plants, which are very poor in the Arctic areas due to some climatic factors I will talk about later on. So in the movie, you heard the information concerning the plants that can't develop the big root system due to the permafrost. Of course, it's the permafrost. It's one of the factors why we can't observe high trees and high bushes in the Arctic. Of course, the climate also has a very important role. We talk a little bit about the Arctic area. You can here have the very nice link to the interactive map you can find on the internet, so you can use it. So I talked about the northern territories of some countries I enlisted, but of course it is the area of the south, no, not south, North Pole, the Arctic Ocean, which is covered by the sea ice. So it is the whole Arctic area. So the factors that are concerned, that a very big influence on the tundra. It's like I enlisted, I choose some of them. I maybe there are more of them. So if you have some ideas, just write it down in the chat. So I choose the landform, animals, type of soil, temperatures, and slope exposure. So the landform, as you can see, is very obvious. It is the very nice landscape close to the Polish Polar Station in the distance of 10 kilometers. It's Revdalen, the valley of the Rev River, very beautiful one. It is a very nice place for the people working at the station to go for some trips in their free time, and often I also went there with my colleagues. As you can see, the more green areas are located in very, let's say, in the bottom of the valley, which means that the landform is more friendly to the plants. It's not as high as the mountains around. And we know that the mountains with their slopes are not stable for the roots, for the plants to grow up. Animals. There are little auks, the birds that are very typical for the Arctic. And they are the size of the pigeon, so they are not so big, and they live in big colonies. We have very close to the Polish Polar Station Hornsund, one big colony, of many thousands of pairs, and our ornithologists and the other scientists worked there and carry many experiments and investigations. And we have, of course, also many publications on the topic concerning the habitat, the lifestyle, and other things that are connected with the little auks. Sometimes in a funny way, they are called the penguins of the Arctic. So of course, that might be confusing because we don't have penguins in the Arctic. They are typical for the Antarctic area and the southern part of our Earth. But of course, students and pupils like it very much. So the bird colonies that are located in the Arctic affects the soils, which are very poor, as I said, in organic matter, and the guano of the birds is a very nice thing that make the ground, the soil, more rich in some organic substances. So that's why very close to the bird colonies in the Arctic, there is more green color. So we have many grasses, we have mosses. The same we can observe in the Antarctic around the rookeries, which means the penguins colonies. So it's the same. But sometimes the influence of the animals, it's not as, let's say, helpful like in this case, because for example the reindeers are fond of the plants and they are eating it in many amounts. So the one scientist I met at my work at the Polish Polar Station told me that in the perspective of 10 and more years ago, there was very nice plant groups, examples around the station, like purple saxifrages and so on. But when the reindeer appeared, the plants disappeared. So for us, it was very, of course, nice to have the reindeer around the station. We took a lot of pictures of that animals, but for that scientist, it was a disaster because he remembered the station with different in different circumstances, and for them it was for him it was also very uncomfortable because he can't work very close to the station. He needed to go somewhere in other locations to take some samples of the plants, so he didn't like the reindeers. Yes, so there is type of tundra soil profile again. So we know that the tundra soils are not so friendly for the plants, and as a factor, they are very important for the growing. The other things are the temperatures. We have also the phenomenons of the polar night and the midnight sun. So the availability of the sun rays during the whole year, uh, it's not so nice for the plants as we have in other climatic zones. Especially the winter is a very long and cold period. As you know, in the Arctic, the temperatures might differ. So it doesn't mean that in the Spitzbergen we have very strong and very cold temperatures. During the winter time, minus 15 or minus 20, yeah, but rather minus 15, it's a typical temperature for the surroundings of the Polish polar station Hornsund. Of course, in the North Pole, Alaska, Yakutia, or Greenland, we have different and lower temperatures during the winter time. So it's not it's not so bad here. Of course, we have strong winds instead. It's not only typical for the Spitzbergen, for whole polar regions, I think. The highest the strongest wind speed we have approximately 140 kilometers per hour, and in the Antarctic I experience about 200 kilometers per hour. So it's very strong. So it's not only affects the human behaviors, but also is very complicated for the plants as well. As you can see, the summer is rather short. The summer in the Arctic, it's approximately 2 months. So the vegetation period is from 50 until 60 days, as it was said during in our movie I presented. We know also that the temperatures, the average temperatures in the Arctic are rising. So the situation is changing all the time. The colleagues of mine that are the scientists who works with the tundra plants are rather happy because the glaciers are retreating and the areas that appeared and are free of the ice are free of the ice present for them new perspectives. So they carried many investigations concerning the plants and how the plants are growing in the new conditions and how they are adapting to the new temperatures which are rising. So that's also an interesting area for further scientist job. Slopes exposure. Yes, the southern part of slopes are always uh, um, friendly for the plants. It's not only typical for the high Arctic, also we can observe here that phenomenon also in our latitudes. Arctic plants, I present 5 of them, 5 species, and talk shortly about their adaptations. Of course, there are many of them, not only those 5 ones. Interesting thing that, for example, polar willow or mountain aven, we can observe in Poland in Tatra mountains. Of course, they are different a little bit, more bigger, but still it's the same type of the plant. So, Svalbard poppy, as you can see on that maybe small photo, but it has a hairy stem. It's kind of protection against the cold, and the stem is hollow inside. So the plant don't need to put much energy to feed them itself, for example, which also saves the energy in the harsh conditions. Purple saxifrage or the polar willow, they grow in a big groups, which means when we are in a group, it's more warm for us. So the same, for example, we can see in the bird colonies, in penguin colonies, they are stick together in a group to get warm. Mountain aven, there are beautiful flowers on the photo of the mountain aven, and oh, there is snowing. Okay. Mountain Avon, the flowers of Mountain Avon tracks have the possibility to track the movement of the sun on the sky. So it means that during the short summer period, it absorbed as much sun energy as they can. So it's kind of the adaptation. And we have cotton grass. Cotton grass is typical because it looks like small pieces of cotton stick to the plant stem, and also it is very nice way of making good isolation against the cold. So they are the adaptations are very brilliant examples of how the life organisms like the plants can adapt to the environment and the changing environment, because as I said, the temperatures in the Arctic are rising. So the scientists, the experts of tundra have a lot to do nowadays. It's very nice type of the surface we can observe in Arctic regions. It is very, let's say, exotic view. Let's say it looks like regular pattern on the ground, and it is connected with the movement connected with the thawing processes of the ground, of the permafrost. We talked about the active layer, which means that it is moving all the time because it's thawing during the summertime and freezing in the winter. So very nice video with the graphic, the animation you can observe on that slide in the presentation. I won't show it now because I think that the photo is enough to see the results of the movement of the ground during the whole season. Of course, it doesn't mean that such kind of pattern might be produced during 1 year. It's the result of many years of the thawing processes. But the result, as you can see, is very nice. It's patterned ground. It's called like this. And there are many films made by drones in the Arctic, and it looks brilliant. It's like piece of art. So I strongly recommend you to watch some films from the Arctic Svalbard, from Greenland, where that phenomenon is observed. The experiment, I maybe don't, I won't talk much about the experiment because we proposed them in the toolkit. It's a, I think, nice option as homework or the additional project for the students or for everybody who is interested in some scientific job make in a home conditions, because it's an experiment you can make to watch the results, how the permafrost affects the plant growing. So in our experiment, we use plasticine as a permafrost layer, and yes, we can do it at home, at school, at work even. I tried twice to do it at home. The first experiment was unsuccessful, but in the second experiment, I had a success and nice results to share with the students. So yeah, when we are talking about the plants of tundra, sometimes we might have the ideas in our heads. What will be if those plants will have the opportunities to live in different climatic zone, like in Poland, for example? Polish students sometimes ask us about this. So Polish scientists from the Faculty of Biology and Biotechnology from Olsztyn, it's a city located in the northern part of Poland, carried out such kind of experiments. So the experiment is still carrying out, and they took some plant samples from the polar regions, from the Arctic and from the Antarctic, because in both polar regions, our country has the research facilities, the polar bases where our scientists work. So that was a very nice process of collecting the samples, transporting them to Poland, and so on. And it is they are growing in the laboratory, but of course they have different soils for growing, different temperature, and the result is very nice. As you can see, the plants are different. They are bigger, but still they are the same species we can find in polar regions. And the experiment showed that the most comfortable temperature for the plants from polar region is about 70 degrees centigrade. And the result is like this. And I talked about the active layer and the patterned ground. We know that the processes of thawing are observed all the time in terms of the year and many years in the Arctic. So what are the most comfortable and useful shoes for people who are working in polar regions? When we were preparing for our expedition to the Arctic, we bought a lot of equipment. We bought, for example, very nice mountain shoes, and we thought that they would be the best to go to the field, but not. We were wrong, because the most useful boots are the rubber boots. Maybe they don't look so elegant like the mountain boots, but yes, they are in use very often, and it is the most typical and the most useful shoes you can observe and you can use when you are going to the field and do some, or even for a trip, because the area of the tundra during the summertime is very muddy. So it means it's hard to walk on it. Your shoes and your whole equipment is dirty. You need to clean it after coming back to the station. So yeah, washing rubber boots will takes you 1 minute. So it's the most nice option. Okay, so we are going to the end of the presentation, and I prepare in my toolkit as well some activities you can do with your students. For example, we create a short video concerning the Arctic tundra. It's Spitsbergen tundra. There are reindeers, those one who are feeding on the purple saxifrage around the station. And one of the activity might be to prepare the subtitles or the commentary for the video. So it is also the music. I will open it, the link, and just present you. And you can think about the nice information that might be added to that material. Okay. Yes. And some interesting facts concerning the tundra. It was mentioned in the movie I present you before about the carbon that is trapped in the permafrost, because in the permafrost are some plants or animal remains. When we are talking about the rising temperatures in the Arctic and the thawing processes of the active layer and the permafrost, it means that those remains are revealed. So in the contact with the oxygen, the organic matter, it's rotten, let's say, or something, and it release the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So it's not a new phenomenon. It's observed in the perspective of some years, and there are also some publications. Also, we published the article on it a few years ago. If you would like to, it's still available online, but as well you can find so many sources of that type of the information. So the scientists are trying to estimate the amounts of the carbon dioxide which would be and is released into the atmosphere in the processes connected with the thawing of the permafrost. Of course, that it's not the only one source of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which make the global warming processes faster. But yeah, it's also within our topic. It's also in the fact. I think we all it's worth to know. So it's the end of the presentation. Thank you so much.